Niklsun here, and welcome to Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. I'm your host, and on this show, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we'll be going over all of the day's movie news and going over what it means for the production in general, such as casting decisions, trailer announcements, director announcements, things like that. So, without any further ado, let's get started with today's Hot Topics. Today's first story is actually in regards to one of the stories I covered on Wednesday's episode. So, on Wednesday, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson came out and announced that he was going to be portraying Black Adam in the upcoming Shazam film. He was teeter-tottering as to whether or not he was going to be choosing Shazam or if he was going to be choosing Black Adam, and he settled on Black Adam, which, looking back on it now, it makes a little bit more sense just considering the fact that he was already signed on to play Black Adam like 5 or 6 years ago. So it only just makes sense that he would choose the same role, especially considering that it's probably a more nuanced role for him. Because he is looking to expand on his roster. Now, one of the things that everybody started speculating on is where is this going to fit within the DC cinematic universe? Is this going to be the next film that comes out after Batman v Superman? Is this going to be the August release? Are they going to hold off on it for a little bit and release something else? Well, it looks like we got a little bit of clarity. Because as it turns out, Shazam is not going to be a Warner Brothers DC release. It is going to be a New Line release. Now, New Line Cinemas is a subsidiary of Warner Brothers. So, just in the sense that Fox has Fox Searchlight and things like that, they have New Line as their kind of under company. Disney does the same thing with Touchstone. It allows Disney to release kind of more adult-themed films while still maintaining the Disney moniker. So, New Line is actually going to be producing this film, and Toby Emmerich, the CEO of New Line, came out and gave a couple of updates on the film. One, he said that he is not a Justice League character. Now, that's all he said on this topic. He did not come out and officially state that Shazam or Black Adam will not be featured in a Justice League film. He just said he's not a Justice League character. That could mean that right now they're setting him up as a standalone character to bring him in later on, or this is in fact just a standalone character, which I like the fact that they're trying to do that, but I do believe that this is the wrong character. And there's a couple of reasons why. One, Dwayne Johnson said in a tweet a while ago that he wanted, one of the 3 characteristics he wanted from the character he was going to choose was he needs to be able to throw down with Superman. If you're not including Shazam in the DC cinematic universe, he's not going to. So I don't understand why that. I mean, outside of just the innate power of the character was maybe what he meant, but everything else about it just stands to reason that having someone like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson involved in the DC cinematic universe is a major win for them. And I do think that having someone like The Rock not be a part of the DC cinematic universe is a mistake. Now, New Line could be producing this in a way where, like I said earlier, where this movie or this character could at least be brought into the DC cinematic universe later on. But I think it's a mistake. You don't choose a character like Shazam or Black Adam to not be a part of a Justice League at some point. He's just too big and powerful of a character. You're going to need a character like that in order to go up against the likes of characters like Darkseid, or possibly even Doomsday. You know, you're going to need the help of that character. And to me, it doesn't make sense. It would be like them doing the DC cinematic universe they're doing now and not including Superman. You just don't do that. You need somebody of his power level. I know that Shazam is nowhere near as revered as Superman. I am well aware of that. But again, it just stands to reason that a character this powerful would be included in it. So I'm against them having it be separate for that reason. I do like the fact that they are trying to go back to the way that things used to be, where a comic book movie came out and it was just whoever he had to fight in that movie. It was just whatever his nemesis was that he had to overcome. He did, and people were never going to ask the question, well, why didn't this guy come in and help him out? Why didn't that guy come in and help him out? Why didn't she come in and help him out? You know, and I do like the fact that studios are thinking about going back to that in a sense, still maintaining their shared universes, but having standalone films as well that are not a part of that universe. I do agree with that, absolutely. But again, I think Shazam is the wrong type of character to do that with. That's just my personal opinion. Mainly, like, again, I probably wouldn't even be having this point of view if it wasn't The Rock who was signed on to portray a character in this movie. Because you don't get somebody like that for a one and done or just a standalone franchise. You want to have him join up with Batman. You want to have him join up with Superman and Wonder Woman and Green Lantern and Flash and Cyborg and all these other characters. So to have a character like that be standalone, I don't agree with it. I just don't. The one thing that also stands this movie apart from the others is Toby Emmerich came out and said that it's going to have a sense of fun and it's going to have a sense of humor, which completely goes against what we just recently heard about DC movies, and that they have a no jokes policy. Again, I don't think it's a no jokes policy. I think it's a no light tone policy. They don't want their movies to have a light feel to them. They want to have their stakes be real. They want to have everything have weight to it and have merit to it. So I do understand that. I don't think it's a no jokes thing, but this flies right in the face of that, which means, again, it's most likely not going to be a DC Cinematic Universe film. And again, I think that's a mistake, but it's still so early on in the production status. We still don't know a lot of information about this film. As more comes out, I'm sure they will shed some light, and maybe what the backlash of this, if enough backlash comes out about this, then they could tweak it a little bit. Still have New Line release the film, but still have him at some point come in to the DC Cinematic Universe. It could work. And I do hope that they leave the door open for that. Do not close it off completely, because I do think that's a mistake. But again, that's just my own personal opinion. I just feel that having someone of the caliber of The Rock, and I don't mean his acting caliber, I mean his on-screen presence, his charisma, things like that, things that draw in an audience, that make somebody likable. You don't get somebody like that involved in a superhero film, especially in this day and age, and not have him be a part of that. But again, if we get more information about this topic, or we at least get some clarity about this, then I will definitely update you guys on here. This next topic is about the brand new trailer for the upcoming comedy sequel, Horrible Bosses 2. Now, I have a link in the description below. If you guys haven't watched the trailer yet, you can find the link there and go ahead and watch it for yourself. But, oh my god, the Horrible Bosses to me was one of my most anticipated movies that year that it came out, because of the comedic talents that they brought in, the unique storyline that they were going for, but going with a comedic sensibility with that film. You know, you have Jason Sudeikis, you have Charlie Day, who I've loved from the very beginning of season 1 on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I mean, he is by far the standout on that. Him and Dennis both, I think, are the standouts on that show. But then you have, you know, Jason Bateman. I mean, obviously Jason Bateman from all the way back to Teen Wolf 2, you know, Arrested Development, all the Hancock. I mean, he was in Hancock. You know, I mean, it was great comedic timing. And then you get somebody like Kevin Spacey and Colin Farrell and Jennifer Aniston to come in and be complete. Well, I mean, not necessarily Kevin Spacey, but you get Jennifer Aniston and you get Colin Farrell playing against type. And I think that just excelled it even more. Well, with this new film, they basically have to go ahead and recruit Jennifer Aniston and Kevin Spacey, at least that's what it looks like from the trailer, to help them out with their next, not necessarily con, they kind of get shoved into this position. Essentially, the storyline of the film is they have a business proposal for a wealthy investor who's played by Christoph Waltz, and he runs the company with his son, who's played by Chris Pine, and they go to him with an idea to invest in their company, and this, that, and the other thing. And I guess through circumstances, he ends up kind of screwing them over and takes the company, and then I guess starts making money off of it. So they hatch a plan, and they get Jamie Foxx involved. Jamie Foxx is back as well, to kidnap the son. So they try to kidnap Chris Pine's character. Well, as this trailer shows, that once they do that, he really goes in, and Chris Pine's character actually really starts to understand these guys and starts to see that these guys are not going to take no for an answer, and he ends up joining up with them to go against his dad, because I guess he just has a hate for his dad, which is kind of cliched at this point, but in this type of movie, I really don't care. The comedic timing in this trailer is hilarious, and one thing I will say about it as well is you can tell by this trailer they're holding back a lot. That was what I got from the first movie as well. And another example of that is The Hangover. When the trailers for The Hangover came out, people thought it was going to be funny, but we had no idea how much they were holding back and how just hilarious that movie was going to be. I felt kind of the same way with Horrible Bosses. I really felt that their chemistry, their camaraderie between one another really elevated that movie above what it originally should have been. And now that we have the same chemistry, the same camaraderie coming back with the sequel, albeit with a different director, but it's the guy who directed We're the Millers, which I've rewatched a couple of times, and that movie's really funny. There's the first time I saw it, I thought it was, it was pretty good, but it wasn't the greatest. I felt it could have been better, but it's got great rewatchability, and I think that's something that is really resonating with characters, with movies that have people like Jason Sudeikis in it, or Charlie Day, or Jason Bateman. They have a lot of rewatchability, and you're able to keep going back to them and discovering new jokes or new ways that the jokes are taken in, essentially. And this trailer really kind of brings home the fact that we're getting different types of performances from these actors. Like Chris Pine, yeah, he's got a sarcastic attitude towards him in a lot of roles that he plays, but for the most part, he does try to play it straight. I mean, he'll throw in the odd chuckle here and there, but I really want to see him let loose in a full-blown comedy because he is a really funny actor. I mean, anybody who's seen Smokin' Aces knows that the guy can do comedy. He had a smaller role in that. He played one of the Redneck Brothers, or I can't even remember what they were called, but it was part of the Three Brothers. And he played, I guess, the guy who lived the longest in that movie. But I mean, he's just, his little scene where he's talking with Ben Affleck. I thought that was just absolutely hilarious. And so seeing him cut loose in this movie, I think is going to be great, especially that scene at the end with them in the car. But I really do get a sense that they are holding back a lot, and I'm really very much anticipating this film. It opens up November 26th, so definitely have that on your calendars for when that movie comes out, because this is going to be one of those rare comedies that comes out and just knocks everybody's socks off. We usually only get maybe one or two in a year. This year, the only one that I can think of that would be... Actually, no, we've got two this year. We have Neighbors and we have 22 Jump Street. So I wonder if this could bring in a trifecta and be the third R-rated comedy that really does, hit home and really does succeed, because this is a movie. I want to see more movies with these guys. I think they're absolutely hilarious. And I don't even necessarily just mean these actors. I mean these characters. I really have been taken by these characters. And I just really want to see more films with this. And everything that we're getting so far from the sequel looks like it's going to promise us a really good follow-up. They have changed the story slightly. It's no longer they're going after bosses or having people come after them, which was one of the original rumored storylines of the film. They're actually going into kidnapping now. So, I mean, it's changing it up. It's not replaying the same thing. So I have my hopes up. I do hope this film succeeds. Again, this movie is going to be opening up on November 26th, so definitely circle that on your calendar. And if we get more information about this film or anything about it, I will definitely update you guys on here. So with the Toronto International Film Festival going on right now, there's not a lot of big movie news coming out. There are certainly some acquisitions coming out, and a lot of independent films are being picked up for distribution and things like that. But other films are going to be announced within the next couple of days, so expect a lot of news to come out on Monday's episode in regards to some of that stuff. But because the majority of the film journalism crowd are at TIFF right now, there's not a lot of movie news coming out over the past several days. So with that in mind, I'm actually going to get to a user question. So this question comes to us from Jason Mercier, and he asks, what are the chances of getting any more Transporters movies, like Transporter movies with Jason Statham? And what are the chances that they're going to be ridiculous? Well, Jason, I have good news and bad news. Good news is they are currently shooting the next Transporter movie, sorry. It's currently titled just Transporter 4. It does not have Jason Statham. Jason Statham is no longer returning to the Transporter series, at least in the near future. Transporter 4 will be an origin story of sorts. It is going to be a younger Frank Martin. The actor who is playing it is actually Ed Skrein, I believe is Skrin. Fans might remember him, and I'll throw a picture up right now. Fans might remember him from Game of Thrones at the end of season 3. His character ended up being replaced by another actor for season 4. I personally didn't like him. He has kind of one of those faces that you just want to punch. But I don't know. I'm not excited about this anymore because one of the things that they said with the origin story is that they're going to be dealing with the relationship with his father, or at least introducing Frank Martin's father. And that no, no, don't no, we don't need to know any more about this character. We don't need to know his backstory. This is not a character that's got a rich backstory. We don't need to invent it. It's going to take away from the character, what little character there actually is. This movie franchise is about, I mean, mainly it was about people just watching Jason Statham. And unfortunately, Jason Statham just went and started doing a whole bunch of other films that were similar to The Transporter. And he's now, I mean, he does want to reteam and do another one, but I mean, it's not at the top of his list. And Jason Statham's starting to get into the direct-to-DVD action film kind of sense. So, no, but we don't, God damn it, we don't need a origin story about the Transporter. I am getting sick and tired of these ridiculous prequels and origin stories about characters just because it's a brand name that people recognize from 10 years ago that made a little bit of money, that they're going to go back and just drain this well dry. Like, it, to me, is absolutely ridiculous. There's so many other stories out there that you could tell. Hell, I mean, do any sort of ancient Greek adaptations or anything like that. And they don't need to be massive scale budget movies. You don't need to have it be this big epic between gods and monsters. You can have it be a character-driven story, but a story that people are familiar with. Stop going back and telling origin stories about characters that we don't need origins for. You're going to tear away from those characters. And to me, it just does not make any sense at all. Even financially, because as the Transporter movies came out, they made less and less money. So I don't understand this. I understand the need to reboot it. Yes. Reboot the franchise, absolutely. It's one that makes money, continue doing it that way. We don't need to learn about his family. It's almost like doing a prequel to The Man with No Name and finding out the guy's name. Like finding out where he was born. Look at what happened when they did an origin story to Wolverine. I mean, that one should have been a shoo-in to be a great film. If any origin story was a great film or had the potential to be, it was that. And that was a giant letdown. So I hate it when they do origin stories. I am not excited for this at all. Now, mind you, seeing some footage and some early reactions from the film may change my mind. But as it stands right now, with the information that I have in front of me, also, the guy who's directing it is Camille Delmaire. Now, Camille Delmaire's last film was Brick Mansions, which I watched. It was serviceable. It was okay. It was Paul Walker's last fully completed film, where he was able to do all the ADR and everything that he needed to do on that project. So, yeah, I mean, even the director doesn't inspire confidence with me, because that movie, it was okay. It wasn't great. It was okay. Nothing special about it. And I have the same feeling about this. There's not going to be anything special about it. Not to say that there needs to be anything special, but there needs to be something to make this movie stand out. Why are they doing it? Instead of doing a $5 million budget to make $20 million, why don't you put a $10 million or $15 million budget and try to make 50? Or 60? Why don't you try to do something like that and not go back to his family per se, but maybe don't tell any backstory at all. Just outside of maybe what was his first mission. If you did something like that, that may be cool to see how he became the character that he was, without really taking away from who he actually is that we've come to know. That might work, but we don't need to see his friggin' family. I'm just getting sick and tired of seeing these pointless sequels and remakes and all this kind of stuff when it is not needed. There are stories out there. Like, I just rewatched the movie Congo, and it's not a great film. To me, it's one of those guilty pleasures. I can watch it again and again, but I can recognize that it is a terrible film. It came out, I think, too soon. They should have waited a little bit longer for the technology to be up there, because it does have a lot of large budget sequences in it that it was just not given the large budget that it needed. And that is a movie, to me at least, that deserves a remake, because to me it was a fascinating story. It's dealing with the conflict between nature and technology, and where should we draw the line, and what's supernaturally what could possibly come about if we try to, expand on one and not care about another one, and allow one to start to die. What could happen with that? And to me, that's an absolutely fascinating take on that kind of a story. As long as you don't have that stupid gorilla in a suit wearing that stupid armband thing, because that was completely added for the movie. You know what? This is what the studio thought about with that film. They thought that audiences were too stupid to care or to read subtitles with the gorilla doing sign language. So they created this little motion thing where it does sign language and this machine reads it out in a computer voice. It was absolutely stupid. And the filmmakers invented that for the movie. That's not in the original book. In the original book, the gorilla named Amy does sign language throughout the whole thing. And the guy's just able to interpret it, or at least they would just put subtitles up. We now live in a more educated age, at least when it comes to film, where that is something that we could get by with. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who do not like subtitles. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Amy is not the main character in Congo. She's one of them, but you could also have it be where she's talking with her master. I'm blanking on his name. Dylan Walsh played him in the movie. But where she, hand signals something to him, and then he just says back to everybody what it is. You could get away with stuff like that for a fair amount of the film. Well, not a fair amount, but a few scenes. And then also the effects for the gray gorillas or the super gorillas or whatever the hell they were. Those could be motion captured, if they put a little bit of money into it. But it's such an interesting story that also deals with government conflict and bribery and politics and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, that's a movie that I definitely see could use a remake. Or even, an origin story. Like, you could even go in and see, how did he discover Amy? How did he develop her? And have that be like the first 15 minutes of the film and then continue on with the rest of the story. You could do something like that. But taking someone like Frank Martin and introducing us to his parents, are you kidding me? No, I don't want to see that. And I don't know anybody who would want to see that. Now, anybody out there who would like to see something like that, I definitely would like to hear your take on this in the comment section below, because to me, it doesn't make sense. It does not click. And if somebody out there has a viewpoint that does make sense, I would really like to hear it. And not necessarily so that you can change my mind, but so that we can have a back and forth, so that I can see someone else's point of view, to see the other side of this, and maybe come around on it after thinking about it and after going through all the material. But as it stands right now, no, I am not all for this at all. It's filming right now. They started filming, actually, they're probably done. They started filming back in June. So the movie's most likely going to be coming out sometime next year. There's no official release date. Because it is a UK production, I'm assuming that it's going to be released in the UK first, although they may release it here at the same time. The only time will tell. But if we do get more information on this, I will reluctantly tell you guys and update you guys on here. Well, that'll do it for us here on Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been a great audience. You can go ahead and click subscribe there in the bottom corner. You can get updates whenever we post a new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at Niklsun, Niklsun, for all of your movie updates. And you can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Movie News with Niklsun. Anytime you guys have a comment or a question you'd like to have talked about on the show, you can email us here at movienewswithniklsun@gmail.com. And until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.